Welcome back on the program. Fire outbreak poses a serious threat to lives, property and the environment, whether in residential area, commercial spaces or in industrial setting. The impact of uncontrolled fires can be devastating. However, many of these incidents are preventable with the right security measures in place. Putting security measures in place to tackle fire outbreaks require a combination of prevention, education, enforcement and response. It is a shared responsibility between the government, property owners, businesses, and the general public. Now, joining us for this conversation is a security and safety consultant, Ayodeji Thomas. Good morning. Thanks so much for joining us on the program this morning. The figures are alarming. In 2024 alone, we have about 19.52 billion was lost to fire incidents in the country. What do you make of this development?
To be honest, it really is something that is on a level of a pandemic, if you have to look at it as that. And the real problem behind this is a little bit of the lackadaisical attitude we have towards fire. Yeah, there's a lot that has to be done to actually focus on the prevention and then the response. And the National Fire Safety Code, in my opinion, is probably one of the most ignored policy documents in this country. It was enacted in 2013. It's a law. There are sections of it that speak to these things. One of the critical parts when you have a fire is knowing what to do in the event that a fire happens. But before that, which is the response part, you have to be proactive and do prevent. Now, the Fire Safety Code stipulates 2 documents, and it is so explicit in that it refers to them as crystal clear, very crystal clear terms. It refers to them as operational requirements for you to operate in any building. They're the Fire Safety Code or the Fire Safety Plan and the Emergency Action Plan, FSP and EAP. Now, the Fire Safety Plan says this is everything I will do to ensure we don't have a fire within the premises. But the Emergency Action Plan says, I know that someday my fire safety plan may fail, and on the day that it fails, this is everything that I will do to respond appropriately. Now, those 2 documents are literally almost the equivalent of you calling them the Bible for anything that has to do with fire and safety. But unfortunately, there are 99% of the buildings that aren't even aware that they need those documents, talk less of having them in place, and then talk less of making them a living document where everybody
We'll talk about the measures to be put in place to ensure that safety is key in this development. But let's look at the figures. January to June 2025, the Lagos State Fire and Rescue Services responded to about 1,072 emergency incidents, including fire incidents, building collapse, rescue operations, and the likes. So it's a bit worrisome at this time. Are Nigerians not, or organizations not aware of the safety codes? Yeah,
well, you see, here's the thing. These numbers that you've even presented here are even the ones that are documented. I dare say there's probably even a higher value that aren't even documented and aren't even recorded. So it's ways larger than this. And like I said, the problem is people do not know of this. Unfortunately, what it takes to be able to go out, like you said in the beginning, is a lot of education. People have to be sensitized to the fact that this is what needs to be done. And then, of course, a crystal clear plan of how to get across and do that. And of course, it's responsible organizations like yourselves that bring that to the fore for people to be able to see that. But it's just not talked about enough, if you understand what I mean. It's not talked about enough.
The recent fire outbreak at the African Towers, it's something that's a bit worrisome, claiming the life of 10 Nigerians. And when you look at the cause of the fire, don't you think it's something that is preventable?
Exactly, again, goes back to what I just spoke about. A fire safety plan, everything I will do to make sure we don't have a fire. An emergency action plan, this is what will happen. There's so many things. I mean, I've looked through...
You walk us through those. You made mention of the word lackadaisical attitude of Nigerians. What are those attitudes that we need to put in check?
First off, I think building consultants or the building property managers, either if it is contracted out to a firm that manages your premises, or it is the responsibility of somebody who actually works within the premises and whose staff, it has to be something that such person or organization takes in a very serious way and manner to say the lives of everybody within this premises are in my hands, and so it is my responsibility. But we tend to look at fire, again, I don't mean this in any way, we tend to look at it as what will happen to someone else. God forbid it happens to us. Our building will not burn in Jesus' name. I agree that there is a place for
a lot of Nigerians will say it's not about prayers.
Exactly my point. If we don't put in place, I mean,
necessary measures.
We all don't get on the planes and say to the airlines don't say to us they're not going to run us through the safety procedures when we're getting ready or we're taxiing for takeoff. And they don't leave it into the hands of Jesus at that point. They tell us what needs to be done. In the event of cabin pressure loss, this is what you need to do. So we need to get to that place where we're talking about the things that matter, because fire targets lives.
Let's look at the role of poor building design and overcrowding in this issue of fire incidents. Don't you think this is also one of the reasons we're having such cases? When you look at an example of Lagos Island,
yes,
and look at such building plans and overcrowding in that particular exit of the country.
Yeah. So again, you have a building that is overcrowded. You do have to understand that the necessary things to put in place, or the services that are in such a building, will be stressed out already. So we have a place that has 200 people staying in it after work. Yeah, they're all going to probably charge their phones from one. I mean, I've seen some of those buildings where a single 13-amp socket has 3 12-port extensions connected to it. Mobile phones are connected to charge. Boiling rings are done. Ironing is done. All of those take a toll on that. So when a fire incident does come up, and more importantly, people do not know what to do because there's no plan. I mean, they're already defaulting in what should happen.
Also consider the fact of fake electricity cables that we also have.
All of those come to bear, to be honest, Emmanuel. Everything, the materials that we use, but I dare say that it is actually the absence of planning. We don't know what to do when a fire happens. The normal thing you hear people do is yell, run. I mean, and that education part has to start early. As a young child, primary school was where I was taught how to get on your knees and to crawl when there's a fire. Why? The heat will rise, the smoke will rise. The idea is to get down on your knees. And if you can't get on your knees, then you crawl on your chest, just to make sure you can at least get breathable air, which would always be at the lower level. How many people know that today?
So it's something that we need to start educating Nigerians.
Right from primary school, to be honest with you. I mean, you've got to go in there. We've got to tell people. If you catch people when they're young, I remember when I was taught this as a 6-7-year-old child, I went home and told my parents about it. Who knew of it?
Are you also considering the panic mood that they will be at that particular time?
But that's the reason why we have to learn about those things, so that when the panic situation comes up, we know exactly what to do. Perfect example. If there is loss of cabin pressure, it's a very, very scary thing. I've been in 2 situations where flights have lost cabin pressure and the oxygen mask dropped. Everybody panicked, but you know what? We all knew what to do. So when panic comes up, it is knowing exactly what to do that helps you at that time. But then when we don't have emergency action plans, we don't know what to do, the panic rises to a much higher level.
Let's take it a bit further to look at the response time of some of these agencies saddled with the responsibility to ensure safety.
Safety, yeah.
A lot of people have queried this response time that is not at a quick
adequate enough.
Speed.
It's not adequate.
It's not adequate. So when there's a fire incident, you have to wait for hours.
So here's where I would err on the side of the response service organizations. The truth is this: with fires, you can never respond quick enough with the fire service, which is why even in other countries we have things like fire hydrants, we have fire extinguishers, because a fire that isn't arrested in the first couple of seconds can become an inferno that when the fire service does eventually come, what they're trying to do is to put the fire under control. It's gone.
So what is first responders?
So the first responders are really the people who are inside.
We have the culture of where people, when there's a fire incident, everybody's bringing out a phone, recording, getting some content.
Exactly, and that's the point that we're trying to make. There were so many people, outside of the building that day who were doing that. The bigger problem, and I'm referring now to the Afriland part, the bigger problem, especially from a lot of people who've responded and who've given their own ideas, is that, hey, we didn't know what to do. We were bombarded with a lot of smoke. Those are the things that I was talking about, that if they had a proper fire safety plan, if they had an emergency action plan, if they had made that document or those two documents what we call a living document, where everybody actually knows what to do under those situations, then they wouldn't have had that problem. More likely than not, there would have been a more coordinated way to be able to respond to that.
Well, it's a fine place to leave it. Security and safety consultant Ayodeji Thomas.
Thank you very much.
Many thanks for coming.
I do appreciate it. Thank you
the program. We hope to see you anytime soon, because this cases of fire incident is a bit worse.
It's really something that has to be.
It's not a case where you just put everything in the hand of God. You have a role to play.
We pray.
I also have a role to play.
It's everybody's responsibility, to be honest.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for having me.
Right.